Hello everybody, this is the Animorphs YouTube channel, and today I'm going to do my top 5 Animorphs books. Now these are going to be from the main series, the run from 1 to 54, excluding the Chronicles and Visser and all that. Mostly because I'll probably address those in a later one. I'll probably do those on a video of their own. This also excludes Megamorphs. So, I'm going to do 5 through to 1, so save the best till last. Couple of surprises maybe, see what you think. So at number 5, number 8, The Alien. This is the first full book that Aximili Escruth Isthill narrates. And I like this book mostly for that reason. It's our first real deep insight into the life of an alien living on a completely new planet. And it's quite fun at the same time as it is quite thoughtful. Ax tries to contact his homeworld and his family throughout this book, but the main part of it that keeps you engaged with it is seeing how he reacts to all sorts of different human situations and how he copes with that. And we do come back to that later on in the series in other different books, not just with Ax. But that is the first and biggest type of that book. And it's thoroughly engaging for that reason. A great read, which is why number 8, The Alien, is at number 5. Coming in at number 4, number 6, The Capture. Now this personally is partly because it was one of the first books I ever had. When I started reading, well, even before I started reading, I bought the books for the covers and I didn't read them for about a year. So I just had them lying around, and it was The Invasion and The Capture. So both of those hold a place for me. Number 1 isn't on this list, it was close, but number 6 is definitely going to be on this list for me. It's quite an important book because it introduces us to being a controller on a more personal level, because obviously Jake, spoiler, becomes a controller. And it's interesting to see how quickly the Animorphs catch on to this, how fast they see it, which does make you wonder how the Yeerks get away with it on so many other people, but they don't on Jake within about 5 minutes. Maybe because Ax is there, I suppose. But that is our first introduction to a character that is a controller. If I'm thinking right, maybe the only one. Apart from Cassie in 19, and perhaps further down the line. But this is a good insight into what it's like, and it's interesting to see the talking between Jake and Temrash, who is his Yeerk. An introduction to a whole load of new things. It's interesting to see how the Animorphs deal with this situation, and overall it's just a well-written book with a solid plot, and it's one of the first I own, so it gets bonus points for that. So that is The Capture at number 4. At number 3, possibly quite controversial, number 54, The Beginning. This is the last book in the original run of the series, and tries to wrap things up, which it does a pretty good job of. The first, I'd say a third of the book, is the final confrontation with the Yeerks, the end of the Yeerk War. So that ends, and then we move on to what the Animorphs are doing after the war. And of course this varies. Rachel dies, spoiler, and the other Animorphs do their own little thing, and it's interesting to see, and quite telling, what they do after the Yeerk War ends. And that's the most entertaining part of it for me. It's a completely different sort of Animorphs book, which it has to be, really. And I did find it very entertaining when I read it. And also, at the very end, this is where it becomes controversial, because some people don't like the ending. But I really do enjoy the ending, because it leaves a lot open. Which, yeah, the series hasn't been written anymore, and I don't think the authors plan to write anymore at all. But it leaves it open for us. And there's obviously been a lot of fan fiction out there expanding on the end of this one and doing something with it. I think maybe that's the intention of the authors. And for all those reasons, I just think this is one of the best books in the series, clearly. So that is The Beginning at number 3. Number 2, number 10, The Android. This is a Marco book, and I do tend to find that Marco books are usually among my favourites, and this is probably my favourite of the lot. I love Marco's narration, I love his style, and also his problems. I think he's one of the most conflicted characters in the series, which always makes for a good read, unlike someone like Jake or Cassie, who almost seem quite one-dimensional with their reasons for being in war, but Marco is always a bit more than that. In this book, important things happen, namely the Chi. We discover the Chi, which are essentially androids created by the Pemalites, and they become quite useful throughout the series. And they have to find some sort of diamond or jewel or something, which enables them to break their program so they can help in the fight with the Urks. Of course, in the end, Eric, the android that we're most familiar with throughout the series, uses this crystal and kills a bunch of people. And then he thinks, sod this, I've had it. And they get rid of the crystal. Who knows where it's gone? But it's interesting to see this new race, their perspective, and how they can help the Animorphs. But one of the big major points in this one for me is the lack of one Visser 3. By this point in the series, he's lost his edge. The first few books, he was this big evil villain that you were fearful of, or the characters were supposed to be fearful of. But at this stage, after having appeared in every book and been foiled in very comedic ways usually, he seems to have lost his effect. So it's a nice breather, this book, to just not have him. And I think the series would have been a lot better off if they did that a lot more, if they just made him a little less frequent. He would have had more of an effect. So that's another reason why this book ranks highly for me. It just feels different and in a good way. Anyway, rounding up, number 1, my favourite Animorphs book from the main series, is number 13, The Change. This is another integral book to the series, and my favourite for a couple of reasons. Now, when people go back to look at this book, they look at one of the main points, which is Tobias getting his morphing power back. Obviously, he hasn't been able to morph since book 1, where he got trapped in the Red-tailed Hawk morph. And you were getting to the point where you thought, well, his role is pretty much solidified in the Sentry, well, not Sentry, but the Observer role, hanging around in the sky, not really getting too involved. This book changes all of that. The Ellimist comes along, gives him his power back, and then suddenly he's a player in the game again. Yeah, that is a major point, and probably one of the major points of the series, but we also get the Free Hawk-Bajir colony starting up. This is definitely another one of the major points in the series, and introduced us to Jarahami and Ket Halbach, who are just adorable. And 2 major points in one book, well written, the characters are all doing their thing as they should, and both these major actions have implications for the entire rest of the series, right up until the end. It is a brilliant book, it's the one that I'll always go back to, and that is why The Change, number 13, is my number 1 for Animorphs book. I hope you've enjoyed listening. If you'd like to give your suggestions for top 5 books in the comments below, it'd be interesting to see your thoughts. And of course, I have to finish this episode with a little bit of advertising. I want to give a bit of a shout to Fanimorphs, the Dork-Bajir podcast. It's a great little podcast. It's got Mikhail, Tessa and Braden doing it. I've been on there a couple of times. They do a fantastic show. I'll leave a link in the description. You should go check that out. Remember to go to the Animorphs Discord as well, which I run. Getting busier over there. Lots of people. Get involved with some Animorphs discussions. And remember to subscribe to this channel and look out for more videos. Thank you very much for listening. This has been the Animorphs YouTube channel. Goodbye.